it's a beautiful adhyaya. Such detailed steps of dhyana are given there. Suchau deshe pratisthapya sthiram asanam atmanaha natyuthritam natinicham chailajana kushottaram tatraikagram manah kritva yatachittendriya kriyaha upavishyasane yunjat yogam atma vishuddhaye samam kaya sirogrivam dharayan nachalam sthiraha samprekshan asikagram swam dishascha anavalokayan vishan prashantatma vigatabhihi brahmachari vrate sataha manas sanyamya matchitto yukta asita matparaha. I don't know how Krishna Paramatma had patience and time to give such detailed steps on the eve of the war happening. Some people ask me the question as to how this communication of 18 adhyayas, how did it take place when the war was, everyone had blown the conch shell and so on. So I answered that question by saying that there were two computers. They were connected with proper cable, just as today we believe that millions of chips of information, bytes of information can be transferred from one to the other. So they were doing that communication with such great speed, and Vedavyasa was kind enough to put it in the form of conversation, and then Sanjaya was kind enough to narrate it to Dhritarashtra, and that is how we have got it here. So it is all due to our good fortune that we have got this document as a permanent treatise for human welfare. So far in the 10th Adhyaya, Krishna Paramatma has explained Vibhuti Yoga. Vibhuti is supposed to be the manifestation of Paramatma, special manifestation of Paramatma in certain objects. Though he is all pervasive, he stays in all the objects, but some objects are distinctly superior to the other objects, like Chandra among the nakshatras, and Ashwatha Vriksha among the Vrikshas, then Airavata among the Gajas, like that. So a number of objects are excelling in terms of their attributes and in qualities. So my special presence is there in those objects. That is how he says. His purpose is to say that he is Sarva Niyamaka, and he is occupying all the objects, and you will find him in everywhere. Sarva Bhutastamatmanam Sarva Bhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. And then it is not discriminatory, because it says you must see Paramatma everywhere. Brahmane Gavihastini Shunichayo Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshanaha. So you will see Samanamaka Paramatma. See, he is not Vishama. He is Samanamaka Paramatma existing in all the objects. So treat all the objects with compassion, with proper understanding, and each unto oneself. That means give equal opportunity to all the entities in life, whether it is animate or inanimate or human being or non-human being. You give opportunities to them. These are very profound principles of life. These are laid down here. And then at one place, when Arjuna asked the question as to why man misbehaves, why does he go into wrongdoings, then he pins down to say that Kama is the source of all the trouble. Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajoguna samudbhavaha, Mahashano Mahapapma, Vidhyayina mihaverina. From Kama you get into Krodha, then Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Mathara. All the 6 enemies of peaceful, harmonious existence in life would be generated mostly through the first starting point is Kama. So Kama in the modern parlance could be interpreted to mean excessive craze for more and more, excessive consumerism, you see, excessive desire for more and more. And in our scriptures there are many stories, many anecdotes, many contexts in which this avoidance of excessive consumerism is given as a principle of life, principle for happy existence. I give the example of the story of Dhruva. See, I had not given it earlier, but for the first time I am giving you. You know, Dhruva had, Uttanapada had 2 wives, Suruchi and Suniti. Suruchi's son is Uttam, Suniti's son is Dhruva. Now, it is my perception, combine Uttama with Suruchi. So it shows Uttama Suruchi. Combine Dhruva with Suniti, Dhruva Suniti. Uttama Suruchi is one modality of life, that is highest taste for worldly pleasures, quick pleasures, quick possession, materialism. Then Dhruva Suniti is firm commitment to the life of values, life of morality, life of standards. So ultimately Sanjaya says, yatra yogeshwara krishno yatra partho dhanurdharaha tatra srir vijayo bhutihi dhruva nitir matir mama. Firm existence, entrenchment of value based life is also assured by taking recourse to Krishna and Partha. Krishna stands for the yoga and Partha stands for action. It's not enough to have faith in your Daivam and spiritualism in the name of surrendering yourself without doing work. So, but Krishna is required for having proper strategic planning of your activity, and Partha is required for actual action. If these two are combined, then you will have not only the success but prosperity, wealth and morality standard will be there. So, Dhruva Suniti, Uttama Suruchi. And initially Uttanapada was inclined more with Uttama Suruchi, like most of us. We want worldly pleasures, more and more of desires, and then but ultimately the final victory, permanent bliss and happiness would be due to Dhruva Suniti. So that is one message. Same way Hiranyakashipu and Prahlada. In Bhagavatam the story comes, we have to take different names in our Puranas in the proper perspective. We should not narrate them, when somebody is giving Bhagavata Purana, we hear more of the storytelling rather than the inferences about the principles of life. So Hiranyakashipu means what? Hiranya means gold. Kashipu means the pillow. So Hiranyakashipu means this fellow was so much of craze, had so much of craze for material prosperity and wealth that he wanted even his pillow to be made from gold. He did not realize that it would be too hard and too harsh. So that is symbolic, Hiranyakashipu. But whereas Prahlada was total dedication to Paramatma despite all awkward situations, all difficult situations, total surrender to the principle of justice, the principle of the right. So Prahlada, and Prahlada means ever pleasant person. So if you stick to principles of life, you will always be pleasant, you will be contented, you will never be having craze and the moroseness or the sorrow of craze for more and more. Whereas Hiranyakashipu was symbolic of the materialistic progress that we are following now, and Prahlada is a symbol of the justice-based, rule-based system of governance and development. And it was Prahlada who ultimately became successful in the form of establishing the rule of dharma. In that way, a number of examples exist where the dichotomy between excessive consumerism or desire for material wealth and desire for spiritual wealth has always got the ultimate victory of the spiritual wealth. I would also like to quote in this context how the Western world, who is committed to this so far consumerist system, is gradually realizing its foolishness. On our part in India, we are trying to follow the path of the Western world by keeping consumption as the engine of growth, whereas they, having pursued that path for a long time, are now realizing that excessive consumerism will not lead to human happiness. Here is a great economist, thinker, Jeffrey Sachs. He has earlier authored a book called The End of Poverty. This book is called The Price of Civilization, Reawakening Virtue and Prosperity After the Economic Fall. This was written after the crisis of the 80s, and he realizes that the American economy, or even the economies which are troubled or which are enshrined in material progress, are going to collapse. Then he says what is required to be done. Now, the mindfulness should start with each of us making the effort to regain control of our personal judgments as individuals who must balance consumption and saving, work and leisure, individualism and membership in society. Mindfulness should then extend to a more considered understanding of our social relationships and responsibilities as workers, as citizens, as members of the community. Then he gives 8 or 9 categories of mindfulness. Mindfulness, I would suggest, is crucial in 8 dimensions of our lives. Mindfulness of self, that is personal moderation to escape mass consumerism, which Krishna is telling, kamesha, krodhesha, rajoguna samudbhava, or control over the sense organs, dhyayato vishayan punsaha sangasteshu upajayate. Keep your wants limited, be contented. Then mindfulness of work, the balancing of work and leisure. Mindful of knowledge, the cultivation of education. So in that context I said that we have to make a distinction between information, knowledge and wisdom. So our present system of education gives lot of information, it may not even give good knowledge, and from knowledge graduate to get better wisdom. Okay. Mindfulness of others, that is exercise of compassion and cooperation. Mindfulness of nature, the conservation of the world's ecosystems, sustainability of development. Mindfulness of the future, the responsibility to save for the future. Mindfulness of politics, the cultivation of public deliberation and shared values for collective action through political institutions. Mindfulness of the world, the acceptance of diversity as a path of peace. So don't think that only your model of development, as the Americans often think, is the panacea for the problems of the world. No, it's only a short digression I am giving you to show how the fundamental principles of life laid down in Bhagavad Gita are meant for human welfare, and how the world, in particular the Western world, is now gradually realizing. So it is high time that we, instead of trying to emulate the lifestyles of the Western world, realize that there is so much in our own scriptures by pursuing which we can make our own lives better and also lives of the mankind better. After having given the vibhuti, Krishna Paramatma, Arjuna asked the question as to how I could see your full form. Arjuna uvacha madanugrahaya paramam guhyam adhyatma samanditam yatvayoktam vachastena mohoyam vyagato mama bhavapya vibhutanam srutav vistara chomayan tvattah kamalapatraksha mahatmamapi chavyam evam etadyathat tattvam atmanam parameshwara drashtum ichhami te rupam aishwaram purushottama. So here his desire to know more has come to a higher level of graduation. So he asked the question as to how I would like to see your full form of rupa. Can you show it? Manyase yaditat chakyam maya drashtumiti prabho yogeshwara tato me tvam darshayatmanam avyayam. So this adhyaya, I feel, gives very profound theory of science, as I may say, it's of astrophysics. It tells about the creation of the world, it tells about the existence of multiple universes, it tells about how Paramatma is all pervasive and is everywhere. So it's a very profound theory of astroscience, astrophysics, so to say. You see, Sri Bhagavan vacha paschame partha rupani shatasotha sahasrashaha nana vidhani divyani nana varna kritini cha paschadityan vasun rudran asvinau marutastatha bahunya adashta purvani paschascharyaani bharata. He now says, you can see my different forms in different manifestations in the present Vishwarupa Darshana. Then natumam shakyase drashtum anenaiva svachakshushad divyam dadami te chakshuhu paschame yogam aishwaram. So he gives him special power of perception. He did not replace his eye and put it another eye in it, but it is a mental perception, ability to have mental perception he gave. And then he starts showing his Vishwarupa. Now you can realize as to how this description of the different worlds that he talks about is stated in the modern science. So here he gives that indication by saying that there are a number of worlds. So when he says Divi Surya Sahasrasya Bhaved Yugapaduthita Yadibhas Sadasi Sasyad Bhasastasya Mahatmanaha. So he says there are thousands and thousands of suns, and if all the suns take the skies at one go, what would happen? How much light or brightness or shining it would have been. So that shining was there in the Vishwarupa of Paramatma. So this shows that he realizes, he makes it known to us that the entire universe is infinite and it keeps on evolving, new worlds, new universes are being created. So in that sense, it's not exactly Big Bang theory, but it is the existence of multiple universes that the Big Bang theory argues. And then he says, Eva muktva tato rajan mahayogeshwaro harihi darshayamasa parthaya paramam rupamaishwaram aneka vaktra nayanam aneka adbhuta darshanam aneka divyabharanam divyanekodhyatayudham. Arjuna could see in Krishna. He is not seeing the Krishna standing in front of him, but he is seeing the entire universe. So in this, some people argue that in the recent science discoveries, it is stated that the space and the time get merged. There is nothing like time as a separate factor and space as a separate factor. There is something space-time. The two get combined.
Sir, is there any references, can we compare with the Sankhya Yoga philosophy of Prakriti Purusha with the time and space?
Yeah, that's right, yes. Prakriti, he earlier also narrates that the entire universe would be created by the interaction between Prakriti and Purusha. And Prakriti is of two kinds, Chit Prakriti and Achit Prakriti. And for both the Prakritis, Lakshmi Devi is supposed to be the commanding deity. And he says, I use this Prakriti. It does not mean that he is dependent upon Prakriti, but he uses that as some sort of Upadana Karana and creates the world. That also comes here. Your question is very right. But he is Prakritatita. He is beyond the influence of Prakriti. Whereas the entire world, all the Charachara Prapancha, is influenced by Prakriti. And Prakriti is a narrowing substance. You see, from Prakriti, all these Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna are created, and from Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, you get different tendencies of life, and they generate series of karmas, and karmas generate lepas, and so the binding forces are generated by the influence of Prakriti. Whereas Paramatma is Prakritatita. He says that.
Is he beyond to the Purusha?
No, he is Paramapurusha.
Vishesha Purusha.
Yes, like Paramapurusha. See, Purusha is etymologically defined in two ways. Puri Shete iti Purusha. Puri is in Dehe, Shete he exists. Jivatma exists. And you may say that Jivatma and Paramatma both exist, but Puru means Purna, Sha means Bala. So he is an entity with Purna Jnana, Purna Bala, Purnananda, like that, So Purusha, when applied to Paramatma, we often call it as Parama Purusha, like Atma and Paramatma. See, so he is a Parama Atma. But the features of Atma, that is Jivatma, are same or similar to the features of Paramatma, but in lesser quantity, lesser categories. So he is also Chidananda Swarupa, but his Ananda and Jnana category is much lower than that of Paramatma. That is how one school of thought, Madhva philosophy says that. But in Shankara philosophy, we will ultimately become Paramatma. So we will ultimately become Brahma. It's because we are part of Brahma, we are created by his desire, and when we go into salvation, we get merged with Brahma. So these are at the time of ultimate salvation. But in the present world, all the philosophies state that Jivatma has to serve the Paramatma, show bhakti, and he should be sevaka, subservient. I told the example of Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam Mudamate, Samprapte Sanihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukkha Inkarane. So we have to have bhakti in the present world. So our discussion is confined to the present world as is relevant for our contemporary life.
There is one sutra in Yoga Sutras, Klesha Karma Vipaka Ashayahi Aparamrushtaha Purusha Visheshaha Ishvaraha iti. That Ishvara can be compared with this Paramatma. There is a procedure how to realize that Vishesha Purusha Ishvara. Tasya Vachakaha Pranavaha Tajjapas Tadatta Bhavanam iti. Like that, to realize this Paramatman, is there any method to realization?
The entire Bhagavad Gita is meant for ultimate realization of Paramatma. So earlier, when Arjuna asked the question as to how far I should do yoga So Krishna Paramatma says, Shruti vipratipanna yada sthashyati nischala samadhavachala buddhi tada yogam avapsyasi. The elaborate stepwise method to reach Paramatma is given in the commentary on that sloka by Raghavendra Swamigaru. See, the first step is to have faith in the existence of Paramatma. That is called as Paroksha Jnana. Something beyond the scan of your indriyas, there is some power, some entity, and that power we call it as God or Paramatma. Some may not believe and may not call it as God, but in any case, everyone has to accept that there is something beyond us as a superpower which has been responsible for the existence, creation and destruction of this world. So that is Paramatma. The next is to have Nishchitartha Buddhi, that you must have firm faith in the existence of Paramatma. Then once you are convinced that Paramatma exists, then you must do all your jobs, all your karmas as dedication to him with ulterior motive of getting his pleasure. That is called as the Nivritta Karma Anusthana. And when you keep on doing Nivritta Karma Anusthana, then you should have Antahkarana Shuddhi. You must have proper, purity of your inner mind, inner conscience. And then once Antahkarana Shuddhi is there, you start craving for knowing more of Paramatma. That is Aparoksha Jnana. And then you will get into Asampradnyata Samadhi. You keep into like Chavana Rishi or Shamika Rishi. They were all able to get into Asampradnyata Samadhi, where they did not have the effect of the outside world. They were only completely devoted on Paramatma. Once you spend time on Asampradnyata Samadhi, you will be able to get Bhagavad Prasada, then ultimately Trigunati Tattva, that you must be away from the influence of all the three gunas, Sattva, Rajaguna, Tamoguna. All the three gunas are the binding forces. Earlier he says, Sattvam Rajas Tamayiti Guna Prakriti Sambhavaha Nibadhanti Mahabaho Dehe Dehinam Avayam. In the mundanized version of these messages, we must always try to pursue the path of Sattva Guna. Rajoguna, Tamoguna put us into the motion of craze, the motion of doing wrong things, whereas Sattva puts you on the righteous path. But the Sattva also is a binding force because it gives you interest in worldly pleasures and it does not take you away from the worldly pleasures. So you must also be beyond the influence of Sattva. So that way, what your Yoga Sutra says as to how we should ultimately reach Paramatma is very much, what is the first Yoga Sutra, tell me?
Atha Yoganusasana.
No, then
Yoga
Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So the entire message of Bhagavad Gita is that Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And earlier I have stated, Yoga means Upaya. Yujyate phalam anena iti karanam vitpatya yogaha upayaparaha, jnana upayaparaha. So here all the yogas, see Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Vishada Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Vibhuti Yoga, Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga, then Bhakti Yoga, all these are upayas, instrumentalities for ultimate realization of Paramatma. I have said earlier, Paramatma is an icon of perfection. I stated also a little while ago, that is by pursuing your activities in a manner not bound by Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, not afflicted by Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsara, you will be able to reach Paramatma. It is the perfection, highest efficiency in your work, and that gives you joy. Now I am giving the mundanized version of this Adhyatmic pursuit of life. The mundanized version means as is relevant for everyday life. So if you give up the effects of Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsara, you will be better off. The more you practice that modality, you will be able to get to that highest level of efficiency, namely Paramatma.
So can we understand that Chitta Vritti should be towards Nivritti rather than Pravritti? That way can we understand?
That's right, yes. But Nivritti does not mean running away from the work. Nivritti is not total retirement. So in fact, Arjuna does ask that question by misunderstanding the word sannyasa. He said karma sannyasa, I will give up the karma totally. Then he says nobody can remain without doing karma. Akarma is not at all prescribed to you. Sannyasa means karma phala tyaga is tyaga, then kama karma tyaga is sannyasa. Kamyanam karmanam nyasam sannyasam kavayo viduhu sarva karma phalatyagam prahustyagam vichakshana. Arjuna asks deliberately this question. Sannyasa means I will give up everything, keep quiet. So he says, no, that is not the meaning.
Paramagurau sarva karma arpanam.
Paramagurau sarva karma arpanam. That is in the yoga.
Yes, I read it.
Yeah, that's right. So all these scriptures give somewhat similar messages or principles of life. So now you see, we have not used anything here to say that Krishna asked Arjuna to fight or to kill. We have found out how profound principles of life are being told to us. You see, nobody will deny that if we say that Bhagavad-Gita teaches us to be away from excessive craze for more and more kama, we should be away from krodha, we should be away from lobha, moha, misunderstanding, mada, vanity, garva, then matsara, envy. These are the enemies of life. So Bhagavad-Gita throughout tells us as to how you should mold your activities to be away from this, and ultimately to convince you that Bhagavad Aradhana Buddhi, Samarpana, Bhagavad Arpana Buddhi is very important in your every activity. You replace Bhagavan by society, by mankind, by corporate sector, by nation, by even your family. And that means don't keep your own personal agenda, keep the more robust agenda of fulfilling the goals of mankind, happiness of mankind. Then that also is Bhagavad Aradhana Buddhi. One of the acharyas have said, Vishnur grahatvat bhutanam daya karya vijanata nana janasya sushrusha kartavya karavanmitehe. So serving the different people is as compulsory as giving tax. Of course, if you are a tax evader, you will say, I will better evade tax and avoid tax. Avoid tax is different. Evade tax is crime. Avoidance tax as per the rules is permitted, but you should not evade the tax. So since as it is compulsory, in the same way you can do the nana jana sushrusha. So what you said is very correct. It is nivritti. Nivritti means giving up your obsession about the rewards. Nivritta karmanusthana, doing the work with the ulterior robust objective. Naraka in a mundanized way. Naraka is not something existing somewhere beyond us, but naraka, kapratyaya is kuchitarthe kapratyaya. So the person becomes a condemned man. He would be in the media, in the newspapers, by his own relatives. Everyone looks down upon him. So that is what Krishna tells to Arjuna. If you run away from your yuddha, your own people will talk ill of you. Those who are talking ill of you would be delighted. They would talk more ill of you. So you will be narake anayatam vasaha bhavati itanushruma. So naraka means you will become a condemned individual. So all this punya, I have interpreted it to mean it is a positive thinking in life. Papa is negative thinking in life. That is, if you have done something wrong, then you will always be cribbing about it. The conscience always tells you that that was wrong. Suppose in an office, somebody has not promoted someone who was really eligible, who was much better. He promoted him because he belonged to his relative, kith and kin, or he was doing some personal service to him, etc. It will be always cribbing in the conscience. And once it grips him like that, he will not be able to do his work fully. His productivity will be collapsing. So papa makes him suffer, means papa will make him work less efficiently, less productively, less to his full potential, and that makes him go down and down. So then ultimately he would become a condemned man. Punya means positive thinking. If he has done a good job, his force in the mind is so great that he would have greater courage to do the rightful things. So punya and papa and swarga and naraka. Swarga means what? Swaha means sukha or prosperity. Ga means gacchati, gamayati. Swaha gamayati iti swarga. So even in the present world, if somebody has done good job very well, then he will stay in a mansion and he will be very happy to enjoy life along with equally endowed people. So he will be having a separate colony along with very happy people. So Swarga Naraka are not somewhere outside, but they are all in the present world itself.